I want to welcome you back to another episode of Laid Back History. This episode is the final one of our haunted laid back histories that we've been doing. Basically took October. We did all haunted history, and this is going to be our final episode before we get back to our regular history episodes of laid back history. I want to thank everybody for their kind words, for tuning in. It seems like everybody's been excited about our Haunted History Month. And it was awesome to see so many people come out to the Haunted History walking tours. There were a lot of people there that are viewers of Laid Back History or fans of Laid Back History, and it was just great to see everyone there. I just had a fun time. I really do. I think the Haunted History tours, I have as about a good of a time doing it as I do any other event that we have. It's a lot of fun. It can tell history, but just kind of have fun with it. So I do. If you weren't here for the tours, I did have a special giveaway that we were doing. So if you came, when we do our tours, we have six stories that we tell, and one of them is always fake. We make it up. And if you were able to guess which one was fake, you could enter your name for a drawing to win a gift card from Chico Bocello, a Haunted History tour of the LeMoyne Crematory for 4 people, what else was there? One of my books, the At a Glance, Southwestern Pennsylvania History, one short story at a time. We were giving away one of those, a Laid Back History t-shirt, and and an invitation to be on Laid Back History. So, we have a bunch of names. I'm going to be drawing soon, and I will announce that on the next episode of Laid Back History. So I do want to thank Steel City Harley Davidson for their t-shirt, sponsorship of the t-shirt of this episode of Laid Back History. As I always say, if you have a business, if you have just something that you like, send me a t-shirt, I'll wear it. I'm just a big fan of different types of t-shirts. And I love this one. I probably wear this one. Of all the ones that Steel City gave me, I probably wear this one the most. It's just really a great looking shirt. So, but at any rate, so this episode of Laid Back History, as I said, it's our last of the Haunted History, Laid Back Histories. In this one, I actually recorded during the ghost tours. One of the first groups that I did on Saturday night, I recorded one of the stories. And that story is about our dining room here at the LeMoyne House. I always tell, or not always, but a lot of times we'll talk about the hauntings here at the LeMoyne House. And I think maybe last year I told part of the story of the hauntings in the dining room, maybe for a Laid Back History episode, I don't remember. But some new information has come up about what possibly some of the history that could be behind the hauntings. And that's what I talk about in this particular episode on this talk that I did on Saturday night. So I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you here in just a few minutes.
Okay, so anyway, I want to, again, I know you've been welcomed already, but I want to make sure I thank you for coming to our walking tours. Our Haunted History walking tours support the David Bradford House and the Washington County Historical Society, and it also helps us to get the history of the region out. It's one of the great things about the tours is that even though, we're telling ghost stories, part of every story is true because the history behind it is true. If you want to believe the ghost story part of it, that's up to you. I'm very skeptical about it. I'm probably the worst person to be a tour guide for a ghost tour because I don't really believe in it. And yet I started them. But I do think the history behind it's fun and the stories are fun. Now, you guys have heard how many stories so far? You've heard 3? So you're midway through. Do you think you've heard your fake story yet? Yes. Okay, somebody was very adamant about it. Somebody over, what story was it? Which one do you think's fake? Which one? W&J? It's a good guess. So we'll see what happens. Maybe you haven't heard it yet. Maybe I'm about to lie to you right now. It's very possible. I always tell people when I go do talks around that if you ask me a question I don't know, I will make up the most believable lie you've ever heard. So, what I want to talk to you about tonight is we're going to tell two stories related to the LeMoyne House. One about an object in the LeMoyne House that is a very haunted object, and one is a story that I've told before. You've heard the ghost story portion of it before, but I found some new information, the background of it, that I think maybe might explain the haunting. So who's been here when I've talked about the haunting of the dining room in the LeMoyne House? Anyone? Okay, a few. Now my big question is for those that didn't raise your hand, why haven't you been on the tours before? So, okay, well now you'll be back. So let's start with that. Let's start with that story. Now, the LeMoyne House was built in 1812 by John Julius LeMoyne. John Julius is the patriarch of one of Washington County's most important families, the LeMoyne family. He had one son. His name was Francis Julius LeMoyne. Francis is the one we most closely associate with the LeMoyne House because he is the one that was the abolitionist, was the that opened the house up as a stop on the Underground Railroad. He followed in his father's footsteps and was a physician and surgeon. He also built the first crematory in the United States, the second one in the world. He introduced merino sheep to Western Pennsylvania. And in the 1870s, Washington County was the #1 producer of sheep's wool because of that. And so he's a very important figure, and that's who we talk about mostly with the house. But we're actually just going to be talking about John today. So John LeMoyne, as I said, was a physician. He's also a surgeon. So when he built this house, he built it in such a way that he could have his residence and his doctor's office all together. So when you walk around the front of the house, take a look. You're going to see a set of steps that have 2 pillars on them. That's the residential entrance to the house. That's where you would have gone to visit the family. You would have went into the parlor, the dining room, maybe upstairs. If there's bedrooms upstairs if you were staying. The other entrance, the more plain entrance, that's the business entrance to the house. That is where you would have went into the apothecary shop. From there, you would have went to the room behind it. That was the surgery. They weren't just physicians, they were both surgeons, and they performed surgeries here at this house. So we talk about that room a lot because, strangely enough, even though it was a surgery, it's now the dining room. After Francis LeMoyne passed away, there were no more doctors in the house. They made some changes to the home. One of the things they did was move the dining room from the first floor over here, where those 2 windows are on the first floor, across the hall into where the surgery was. Now, makes sense to me, cut someone open one day, eat dinner there the next day, seems good. But, it's kind of a strange thing to do, but it made sense at the time. And we talk about that dining room because there's a lot of strange activity that happens there. When we open back up, we'll be open in the spring of 2022 after we get our new museum built, we get the house restored and get back in here. Go into the dining room. Come for a tour, go into the dining room. You're going to see 2 cakes in there. One of those cakes, they're not rotted, they're good. One of those cakes is 15 years old. One of them is 17 years old. Food does not go bad in that room. It's a strange thing in there. That room is also colder than anywhere in the house. Doesn't matter how you adjust the heat, you walk in there, it is about 5 degrees cooler than any other room in that house. It's just a very strange room. So our ghost story that we tell every once in a while, takes place in the 1920s, late 20s and early 30s. There was the daughter of Francis LeMoyne, Madeline LeMoyne. Madeline was called the First Lady of Washington. Everybody loved Madeline. She lived to be 100 years old. She loved to tell stories about her family, about her father in the Underground Railroad, or maybe her brother who was a surgeon during the Civil War, or her sister who was involved in the women's suffrage movement, who was best friends with Susan B. Anthony and was one of the early women involved in that movement. Or maybe just talk about herself. She was born in 1843 and it's the 1920s and 30s. Imagine all the things that she saw. People loved to hear her stories. Well, what she would do is about twice a year, she would invite the top students from W&J to come over and have dinner with her. They would sit around the dining room table and she would, as they had dinner, tell stories about her family. And it was a huge honor for that, to be invited to that. And people wanted to be invited. So it started, everything was going well. For several years, it was fine. But then they started to see where some of the students that were invited would decline the invitation. Well, it was kind of an insult. And the president of the college thought, well, Madeline's a big supporter of ours. Her family is a supporter of ours. I need to find out what's going on. He gets some of the students together and he talks to them and tries to ask them what's going on. Why are they not wanting to go? And they really don't want to tell him, but eventually they open up and say, there's just something weird about that house. And specifically, the dining room. They just don't like the dining room. So he's asked, why? What's wrong with it? So after a while, they started to explain to him that when they're in the dining room, when they would sit around having dinner, that they would just feel weird things. They could see things out of the corner of their eyes, like there was someone moving in the corner. Or they would just get this almost like a nauseous feeling, you know, or just kind of get queasy. It would get cold all of a sudden, where these sudden cold breezes, it would just drop the temperature where they could even see their breath. And probably the worst thing is they said they could feel hands on their shoulders when they were sitting there, like somebody was touching them. Well, I always told the story and I chalked it up to the fact that it's a surgery. People were born there. People died there. You know, it was not a good, or it was not a pleasant thing in there all the time. There's a lot of pain that was suffered in there. And that's what I chalked it up to. But a few months ago, I was doing research on a gentleman by the name of Major McKenna that I was going to talk about on an episode of Laid Back History. And I found a story as I was doing that research. So February 20th of 1820, it's a cold day. About 2 a.m. In the morning, a fire breaks out in Washington. So if you go across the street, you're going to see the white brick house. That's another LeMoyne House. It was not here yet. Now beside it is Dr. Webb's office. Dr. Webb's office was the home of Major McKinnon. In fact, a lot of the home is still in there. Next to that, the entrance into the brewery, there was a wooden frame home that sat there, 2-story. Major McKinnon used it as a lawyer's office on the first floor, and then he rented out the second floor, and there was a couple that was living there. That house catches fire about 2 in the morning, and they said it went up like flash paper, like kindling. It just takes off. Burning so hard, there's sparks flying up in the air that they actually got up on this roof and several of the other roofs around and dumped water, got buckets of water to dump on the shakes, the wooden shakes, so they didn't catch fire. Trying to keep the fire from spreading, but it did spread to one home next to it. Luckily, no one was injured in that. And eventually, they got that under control, and they were able to just let the house, the original home that caught fire, they kind of got it controlled and just let it start burning in. So once it was under control around 5 o'clock, most people went home. 9 men stayed behind to tend the fire to make sure nothing happened. About a half hour after that, around 5:30 in the morning, it started to rain. Freezing cold rain. Now, what had happened is the chimney that was there, the stone chimney, had become pretty much superheated from the fire. When that cold rain started hitting it, it exploded. The stones exploded. It spread out like shrapnel from a grenade. And 9 of those 9 men, all 9 of them went down almost immediately. 2 of them were killed from being hit in the head right from the onset. They were gone. They brought the other 7, across into the LeMoyne House, into the surgery. They laid them out on the floor, and Dr. LeMoyne, John LeMoyne, went to work. He worked for over 8 hours on those men. There were cuts that had to be sewn up, legs that had to be amputated, a hand that had to be amputated. He was working nonstop. They even called in other doctors to come in and help him. 8 hours later, only 3 of the men survived. Okay? So out of the 9, 6 of them were now dead. They go to clean up the surgery, and it was written in there that the walls were so covered in blood that they couldn't scrub it off. They eventually just had to paint over top of it. The floors, they pulled up several floorboards, put a metal trough in so they could bring in buckets of warm water, splash the floor down to try to wash the blood and stuff into these troughs so they could dump it. Dr. LeMoyne said it was the most horrific thing he has ever been part of, and he had never seen anything like that before. that he sewed up more wounds, saw more blood than he ever needed to in a lifetime. Well, I think maybe that's what causes the activity in the dining room. It's not all the surgeries that took place there, it's that one night. February 20th of 1820. Think about all the pain, all the anguish, you know, the blood, the energy that would have been left behind. This is a very thick stone house. Paranormal investigators talk about how sandstone holds in energy, and stone houses have more activity than other homes because of that. Well, this house has 2 foot thick stone walls, sandstone walls. And maybe that's why that room has all that activity, that it's all that energy that's been left behind. And that's what those students in the 1920s and 30s were experiencing. And that's what people experience today, because I have people that go in there that get chills immediately as they walk in there. And maybe that's what it is.
All right. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that. I think I had some people guess that was the fake story, but it's not. The history behind that, we have the newspaper article about the fire at the McKinnon House from February 20th, 1820. I've got copies of the newspaper and the information in our archive about Dr. LeMoyne and, you know, the struggles that he had in our dining room trying to save those men. So now, if you want to know more about Southwestern Pennsylvania's haunted history, we do have a book in our gift shop that we sell called Ghosts of Southwestern Pennsylvania. And it's Greene County. I think there's some Fayette County, Allegheny County, Butler County, just all kind of different stories. So you can call us here at the Historical Society or shoot me an email. Once we get the new website taken care of, you'll be able to purchase these online. But right now, if you give us a call, we can take your order over the phone and send this out to you. So, but I guess that's it. That ends our laid back history, our haunted history talks for October. So for 2021, geez, I can't believe it's 2021. We're done. Now I am thinking about doing something a little different in the spring. I'm thinking about doing a haunted history tour, but making it a haunted history bar crawl. So you'll start up on the hill, you know, maybe start at the President's Pub and have a story and a drink, and then walk down and go to another, you know, maybe Red Pump and tell a story and have a drink, and you know, have it be promoting the local businesses in Washington while telling some stories as well. So keep an eye out for that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm sure that I'll put the information on. I'll be talking about it on here, I'm sure, and it'll be on our website. But at any rate, I'm going to go ahead and end. And once again, thanks Steel City Harley-Davidson, and thank you all for watching, and I will see you next week for another episode of Laid Back History.